Well, we've had a day to gather our thoughts. It was pretty insane yesterday, but in case you're not aware, Trails in the Sky first chapter is getting what appears to be a full-on remake releasing in 2025, and it looks also to be a simultaneous worldwide release. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was excited yesterday. If you saw the video, I'm certain you heard it in my voice, and I still am. But now the euphoria has calmed down a little, the dust has settled, and we can discuss the game with a bit more structure. And the more I look into it, it feels like the Sky remake has provided a solution on one side, in that it is most likely going to be the definitive starting point for any new player going forward, but at the same time, it has raised several questions. I don't want to be a dampener because the Sky remake is only a step in the right direction. That is the leap that was imperative to make in my mind. But I'm also worried that Falcom could potentially be fumbling with the biggest opportunity they have at present. This is no disrespect to their other projects like the multitude of Western releases coming out like Daybreak 2 or East 10 Nordics, along with awesome projects like Kai no Kiseki and the Tokyo Xanadu sequel, but at present, the Sky remake is undoubtedly their golden goose. This is the most important game in their release schedule, and I've got no doubts about that. It is the definitive and optimal entry point to their biggest series, the one that could bring in so many new fans, people who have actively held off playing because they were hoping the rumours to be true. And now that it is, Falcom cannot lose this opportunity. And I just have concerns that upon reading some of the articles after its announcement, they might just be doing that. The trailer has left us with more questions than answers, and the main points we need to address in particular are, for me, the platforms, the Western publisher, the localization, and lastly, the potential of remade sequels. I want to make it clear as well, I am as much in the dark about this as you are. I am an outsider looking in, I can only speculate, and I hope we get these questions answered in due course. I'm just fortunate that I have a channel where we can centralise the discussion somewhat. So we're going to start with the platforms. And of course, when the game was shown at Nintendo Direct yesterday, that pretty much confirmed that the game is coming to Nintendo Switch. There's no rewards for figuring that out. But generally, once a Direct is done, you normally expect the developers or the publishers to release their own promotional trailer where they also confirm the other platforms. So for instance, Atelier Yumiya, which is another game I'm very much looking forward to, was announced for all modern platforms like 10 minutes after the Direct finished. And I believe it's actually the first time it's coming to Xbox too for a simultaneous release, so that's a really good thing for Gustin for Atelier. Awesome stuff. But anyway, the Sky remake did not get this. It was stated as coming to Switch, but nothing else. And having a look at the website, it once again shows no other platforms. Now, Persona, I believe, was quite similar to this. Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5. I believe they were all coming to one platform at first, and then later on they came to stuff like PC and all that kind of stuff as well. So maybe it's something similar to that. I'd like it to be like that. That would alleviate one of my biggest problems with this. But hey, anyway, let's move on. Let's agree here. The Switch is successful. It's got the third best lifetime sales of all consoles. It's by far and away the most successful console in Japan in the present day, with around, 33 million units sold. The user base of the Switch is just massive, and that extends all over the world too. So the potential market base is massive, and it makes sense that Falcom are targeting it if you're just looking at the raw numbers. And Falcom have always adopted this kind of specific strategy on one console for extended periods. They did so with the PSP and Vita, they later did it with the PS4, and now they're doing it with the Switch. They stated in a previous financial report that the Switch was going to be their focus for the coming years, and they have stuck true to their word with games like, say, East Memoir and Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus coming to the platform. Now consider as well that their recent newest release, in East 10 Nordics, was created with the Switch in mind. Falcom tailored it to that platform, and it looks like they're basically doing the same with the Sky remake. The solace here is that East 10 Nordics, of course, did come to other platforms eventually. But the question to ask here is the Sky remake going to get the same treatment? Now, Gamatsu managed to get us a lukewarm answer at present, and it was provided by a Falcom rep, So their article was updated at 10 past 1 in the morning. I'm not sure what time zone that is, but I'm pretty certain I was asleep at this point. But anyway, in regards to platforms, they said, while the game has been announced for Nintendo Switch, a release on PlayStation and PC platforms is currently to be determined. There is a possibility that it could be released on these platforms, and if that decision is made, it will be announced in a press release at a later date. So from that, it looks like Switch exclusivity was always the intended vision of Sky the First. It tells me that they had no plans to release it elsewhere because the decision seemingly was never even made, and they're likely only going to consider this if the game sells well on Switch. So that's not great to hear. However, again, we're going to bring it back to the potential solace and the rays of sunshine and stuff like that to potentially lift this miasma of darkness. The gameplay looks to be 1080p and running at a smooth 60 FPS, and that is quite clearly not Switch gameplay. So that tells us something. Could it be from more powerful hardware, like say a PS5 or a PC, which is also going to be getting the game? Or could it be from the Switch successor? The Switch 2 has been a hot topic over, I'd say, the last half a year or so, and Nintendo have pretty much confirmed that while they're not going to be releasing it this year or this fiscal year, they want to at least announce it this fiscal year. So you have to ask, have Falcom been using an early build of the Switch 2 in order to generate that gameplay? And I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation for the Switch 2 to be able to run games, especially these ones, at 1080p and 60 FPS. I mean, the Switch successor, I would be disappointed if it couldn't run games in 2160. So yeah, in theory, 1080p, 60 FPS, not a problem for the Switch successor. Not in my mind, at least. So is it a case then that Falcom are trying to curry a little bit of favour with Nintendo? Not for the Switch, but for its successor, to have a game, a big hitter, when the platform releases for the first time. That's something to consider potentially. But another thing to consider is that, is this seeming exclusivity for the Switch a permanent thing? Or is it only for a limited time, for say 6 months or a year or something like that? We have seen it happen, and I believe this was always done to extend the lifespan of the Nintendo Switch. The longer they could keep the Switch going, the more money they make, so, you know, it makes more sense. But it has happened in the JRPG space. Octopath Traveler 1, Live Alive, SMT 5, and Master Detective Archives Raincode. All of them were limited time exclusives on the Switch before they eventually came to other platforms. So could the Sky remake be similar to that? I hope so, because at the moment it seems like the Switch exclusivity seems to be a concrete deal. Maybe we might get, like I say, one of those Persona deals where like they reveal the other platforms later on, but at the moment it looks set in stone. I hope then that if that is the case, it is only a timed exclusive. And the thing is, the platform discussion for me doesn't just end at exclusivity. We also need to consider the publisher in this case as well. And the reason I say this is because with NIS America, we as Western fans have become used to the games coming to 4 different platforms: PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch and PC. Now what I'm trying to say here is that depending on what publisher we get, does that diminish what potential platforms we could be getting in the West? And it seems to be the case at present because they have confirmed that the Western publisher is currently being determined. Gamatsu once again asked the Falcom rep about this, and they responded with, "At this time, the Western publisher is to be determined, which is why our company name was mentioned in the announcement. There is a possibility that we may handle distribution ourselves, but if arrangements are made with a local publisher, they would be responsible for distribution instead." Now in terms of publishing, we in the West are most used in this present day with NIS America, but interestingly enough, it seems like NIS America are not involved with this game at all, according to Gamatsu once again. Let's have a look. Interestingly, I contacted NIS America regarding the remake and was told by a public relations representative that they're not the distributor. Now, this doesn't necessarily rule them out because it might be something a bit higher up as a decision, but at present it seems unlikely that NIS America are going to be involved with this like they were with many other recent Trails releases. And that already rings alarm bells for me, because if NIS America are not involved with the remake, then that potentially knocks off my platform of choice, which is PC. Because Durante and PH3 work with NIS America for their ports. So does that mean now that PH3 are not going to get involved with a potential PC port? Anyway, the publishers. If NIS America are not involved, that leaves 3 in my mind. Xseed are going to be the obvious one. They are the original rights holders. They very recently split responsibilities on distribution as well with Marvelous USA, so they were originally just a branch of Marvelous Games, but then the 2 subsidiaries kind of branched off. You have Marvelous USA, which is now doing the in-house stuff, which is going to be stuff like, I believe, Project Life is RPG and Farmagia and all that kind of stuff. And then on the other side, you have Xseed, who are going to be dealing with the outsourced stuff, so stuff like East Memoir, Oath and Falgana, so Xseed could be a potential publisher here. Of course, Gamatsu did mention that Falcom themselves could be doing this. Now, I'm not so sure what they could be doing, but that could have some credence, and they might potentially be able to do it, because on the localization side, well, there's not much really to do, but we'll touch on that in a bit. But the last one. If it's coming to Switch, is it possible that Nintendo could publish it? They have the expertise, they have the reach, they've done it many times before. Problem with that though is that if Nintendo publish it, does that lock it to the Switch forever? Well, it didn't for Octopath Traveler. My memory's not very good, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was exclusive to the Switch for about a year, and in terms of distribution to the West, that was done by Nintendo. But when it was time to port it to other platforms, Square Enix basically got the license back and then did it themselves. So that doesn't necessarily mean that if Sky First Chapter, or the Sky remake should I say, is done by Nintendo, that it's going to be locked to the Switch forever, but Falcom, I imagine, would have to get the publishing rights back and maybe distribute it somewhere else if they can't do it themselves, who knows. But those are the 3 ones. If NIS America aren't going to be involved, as it suggests that they're not, then that leaves 3. Xseed, Falcom themselves, or Nintendo. And I feel like the publisher itself is going to give us a hint into how the localization is going to be handled, because some people have already been making comparisons between the remake and the original, and they can effectively see that it's a 1-to-1 with the Xseed localization of Sky First Chapter. And that makes sense to me, because outside of legality barriers with the license itself that I assume have been sorted, or are at least in the process of being sorted, and maybe some formatting issues to make sure, say, letters don't overlap speech bubbles, nothing really needs to be done with the localization. Xseed's work was excellent, so really the only thing that could prevent its use would be that license, supposedly. And it's because of this that a worldwide simultaneous release is possible, and it's also why I expect it to be possible, because the main part of the work is done. The script is finished, the translation and editing is complete, there is not much more that can feed in to a potential release gap. But one thing that could do this, potentially, English dubs. Is the game going to be fully voice acted for both Japanese and Western audiences? At present, there is no information about this. I expect to hear something about this in the near future, but could that present a workload issue for potential future projects? And since we're mentioning those future projects, I feel like we need to talk about the elephant in the room. When I talked about the potential of the Sky ports, around about, I think about 2 months, 3 months ago or something like that, I can't remember how long ago it was, it made no sense to me that Sky FC alone would be getting a remake. Because if you're going to do Sky FC, you have to do Sky SC at the very least, and then you might as well do the third as well. It makes no sense in my head to only do Sky FC, and anyone who has played First Chapter knows exactly what I mean when I say that. And of course, like I say, if SC gets done, then you have to do the third as well. You might as well do the whole lot. But you know, I have to ask myself as well that these remakes, are they in Falcom's best interest as well? Like, you know, if Kondo is to be believed, Kai no Kaseki is the 90% marker for the series, and that suggests that we've got about 2 arcs left, maybe 2 games each, potentially. Like, this is Falcom, they can extend it if they really want to. But do these remakes potentially prolong the life of the series until, say, The Legend of Heroes moves on to something new, away from Trails? Potentially. Does this also mean that the Crossbell games are going to get the same treatment, despite only recently coming west? Again, these are questions that need to be answered, but again, like I say, if you're going to do Sky FC, you have to do Sky SC at the very least. At the very least. And maybe they're already working on it. I don't think that Sky SC is going to be included in this remake, because if it was, Falcom would be screaming it from the highest rooftop, like, hey guys, the game that we had to split in half 20 years ago is actually now all in one. That would be a massive selling point, and they would definitely not keep that a secret. So I imagine that it's just going to be a case of Sky FC equals Sky FC Remake, and then Sky SC equals Sky SC Remake potentially. And then Sky the Third as well. But anyway guys, like I say, I expect to hear some answers in the coming weeks. It is very exciting news, no doubt, very exciting, but Falcom need to answer the more pressing issues. Put your thoughts in the comments. Of course, I want to, gather as much information as I can. I'll keep an eye on the updates as and when they come, and then of course we'll discuss them as they come as well in monthly news videos and all that kind of stuff. But either way, Sky FC Remake, awesome to have it. I just want to know a little bit more about it before I can really, invest myself into the hype. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.